The clash that unfolded in Canada's House of Commons on the day of the budget vote was not just routine theater. It was a moment when two very different ways of talking about the country's future collided in full view. On one side stood Prime Minister Mark Carney, measured, calm, and determined to frame the budget as a once-in-a-generation response to a harsher world. On the other side, opposition leader Pierre Poilievre leaned into familiar lines about credit card politics, soaring bills, and a government that could not be trusted with a dollar. The contrast was not only about policy, it was about who could convince anxious Canadians that they truly understood what people are living through.
Prime Minister's costly deficit gambles our future on the national credit card, and it drives up food, housing, and tax bills. In fact, the Parliamentary Budget Officer has revealed in his recent report the Prime Minister has doubled Justin Trudeau's deficit. He's brought in the biggest deficit in Canadian history outside of the pandemic, $16 billion bigger than he promised only 7 months ago. Why isn't the Prime Minister breaking his word and forcing Canadians to pay higher inflation today and higher taxes tomorrow for his costly credit card budget?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, today is a good day. Inflation is down 2.2%. It's for almost 2 years it's running within the Bank of Canada's target. Mr. Speaker, today this is a good month. Unemployment is down again. Jobs are up again. Mr. Speaker, today is a historic day. The Leader of the Opposition and his colleagues have an opportunity to vote for generational investment to build this economy.
As the debate continued, what became unmistakable was how differently the two sides defined the word leadership. For Poilievre, leadership meant giving voice to the frustration felt by people who believe their standard of living is declining and who feel abandoned by institutions. His strategy relied on presenting the government as indifferent to everyday struggles, hoping that repetition of simple arguments would outweigh the complexity of macroeconomic data. For Carney, leadership was about asking Canadians to zoom out, to see the economic landscape not only through household bills, but through the long arc of national resilience. His answers suggested that steady, predictable policies could pave the way for growth even if the path was difficult in the short run.
Maybe it's a good day for him and his Brookfield buddies who are dodging their tax bills, but it's a terrible day for the Canadian people stuck paying record-high grocery bills. In fact, the Prime Minister said he'd be judged by prices at the grocery store. Today, Statistics Canada revealed that grocery price inflation is almost double the Bank of Canada's target, rising 40% faster in Canada than in the United States of America. The direct result of the Liberal industrial carbon tax on farmers, the food packaging tax, the fuel standard tax. Prime Minister puts his budget on the national credit card. Does he expect Canadians to pay their groceries the same way?
Mr. Speaker, the rate of inflation is down. Mr. Speaker, job creation is up. Mr. Speaker, ambition and confidence in this country is sky high. We believe in Canada. We are investing in Canada. Today is the opportunity for every member of this House to join us.
The political contrast sharpened when Poilievre returned again to the theme of household affordability. He emphasized that since 2019, demand for food banks has soared, with millions of visits recorded in a single month across the country. He argued that rising food bank usage proved the government's policies were failing, and he insisted that further spending would only deepen the hardship.
In Canada, he's dodging his taxes by putting his money outside of Canada, while the Canadian people cannot afford to eat, heat, or house themselves. Inflation is now nearly twice the target when it comes to the measurement of food, rising 40% faster in this country than south of the border. We have 100% more people lined up at food banks than in 2019 as the Prime Minister continues to raise taxes on farmers and on food packaging. So once again, the Prime Minister thinks he can put his budget on a limitless credit card. Does he really expect Canadians are going to buy groceries the same way?
Mr. Speaker, again this month, just as it was last month, just as it has been every month when I've been Prime Minister, Canadian wages have grown faster than the rate of inflation. Canadians are getting ahead. We are creating jobs despite the attack on this economy by the Americans, despite by the obstruction of the opposition. This is an opportunity to build our country. The vote is today. Stand up and be counted.
The day was not simply about exchanging talking points. It was about shaping public understanding ahead of the crucial budget vote later that evening. Poilievre wanted the vote to be seen as a referendum on the cost of living. Carney wanted it to be seen as a vote on national resilience, industrial transformation, and economic security. Both leaders understood that this moment would be replayed across television networks and social media, influencing how Canadians interpret the economic direction of the country. At one point, Poilievre returned to the theme of crime, attempting to draw a link between economic insecurity and rising public anxiety. He cited increases in extortion over the past decade and used those statistics to argue that the government's changes to sentencing laws had backfired. In communities facing targeted scams, digital harassment, and cross-border criminal networks, concerns about safety are real and deeply felt. Yet the framing suggested a direct line from legislative decisions to every shift in crime patterns, which oversimplifies how complex and evolving these trends truly are. Carney countered by pointing to bills already before Parliament that aimed to address identified gaps, including legislation to strengthen bail conditions for repeat violent offenders, modernize rules around firearm trafficking, and introduce new protections against online exploitation. He emphasized that tackling crime requires cooperation rather than finger-pointing, and invited the opposition to support evidence-based solutions rather than rejecting proposals for political gain. His tone conveyed impatience with slogans that diagnose problems without acknowledging the work already underway to address them. Throughout the session, one tension kept resurfacing, whether economic pessimism or economic pragmatism would dominate the narrative. Poilievre consistently argued that Canada was falling behind its peers, that investment was fleeing, and that the government could not be trusted with taxpayer dollars. Carney acknowledged the headwinds, slower growth, demographic pressures, and global trade tensions, but insisted that the budget was designed precisely to confront those challenges rather than retreat from them. He spoke of investments in energy, defense, and infrastructure as the foundations needed for Canada to compete in an era when economic strength is increasingly linked to national security. Champagne's intervention reinforced that message, emphasizing that Canada could not afford to delay major projects such as clean energy grids, advanced manufacturing facilities, and defense modernization. He reminded Parliament that allies are watching how Canada positions itself and that long-term investment attracts further investment by instilling confidence. He also argued that improving productivity and nurturing innovation were essential if Canadians were to see real wage gains in the years ahead. His tone carried a sense of urgency, suggesting that the window for decisive action was narrowing. As the exchange neared its conclusion, a shift occurred on the opposition benches. While Poilievre maintained his combative posture, some of his colleagues appeared uncomfortable with how the narrative was playing out. The Prime Minister had come prepared with data and a coherent argument linking the budget to broader global realities. The opposition, by contrast, found itself recycling the same lines, even when the government addressed the claims directly. The result was a session that highlighted divisions within the Conservative ranks, as some MPs seemed hesitant to cheer attack lines that did not fully align with emerging economic indicators. The moment that many observers later described as decisive came when Champagne challenged the Conservatives to decide whether they were prepared to vote for Canada's long-term growth or whether political calculation would override national interest. He spoke about the importance of restoring public confidence and about how major economies are racing to secure green technology supply chains, solidify defense partnerships, and attract capital. His remarks suggested that the world would not slow down for Canada and that failing to keep pace could limit opportunity for decades. In households across the country, viewers watching the exchange may have been less focused on parliamentary theatrics than on which narrative felt closest to their lived experience. Those who feel squeezed by high rent, groceries, and mortgages may have found comfort in Poilievre's blunt warnings. Those who believe Canada must respond to a shifting global order with investment rather than austerity may have been persuaded by Carney's insistence that the world is changing and policy must change with it.